Good evening, everybody. Welcome not to Carrow Road. We're at the Fat Cat and Canary for this evening's team news video. Myself and Paddy Davitt here ahead of what is a big game, maybe a slightly daunting prospect as well. Norwich City welcome Pep Guardiola's Man City to Carrow Road. We'll, of course, bring you the team news as it drops. Pad, we had a discussion about this yesterday. What do you kind of make of this game? Because this is, I mean, as a double header, first of all, if we kind of zoom out, this is...
Sorry, I've been distracted by the burgers.
Well, that...
particularly good here, mate.
They look good, and they smell good. But also a bit of a revelation before we get into the game. We've seen several people at the pub who have, not us, I hasten to add, but have a pint glass. Actually, there's one walking past here with Pink and Plus on it. So that's a good sign.
Doing a live for the camera. I just want to show your glass off, mate.
So here you go. Look, there's a good sign of what you can what people are drinking.
Thank you. Yeah. Go for your life.
Very good.
Thank you, top man, good man, and that is that's why we're live. See, and we haven't even paid him to walk in shot. So
never met him before,
no, we haven't. So there we go. Anyway, to zoom out.
I'm waiting for the pint glass to come over our heads in about 20 minutes. You're talking rubbish, Davitt, as usual.
Yeah, when people start throwing things, it's usually a sign that we need to leave. But you may be able to see, if I just step to one side, we are standing in front of that Daniel Farker mural. Of course, he was the man in the dugout last time these two teams met at Carrow Road in the Premier League, and it was that 3-2 win in September 2019. Pad, can we get a repeat of that tonight?
Oh, you can dream of it, but I mean, we got into this in depth yesterday, post Dean Smith's press conference, and I think we arrived at the conclusion that it's probably a better Man City, and they were pretty tasty then 2 years ago, just over 2 years. But you look at the league table, as Dean Smith said, he thought that Liverpool team that nearly went unbeaten a couple of seasons ago were the best he'd seen in the Premier League, certainly in modern times. Jurgen Klopp is now saying he's got a better squad at Liverpool, and they're 9 points behind this Man City team. So it's hard to suggest that it could happen again. But, if we'd have been sat in this very spot prior to the game 2 and a bit years ago, we'd have been saying the same thing, and look what happened. And as we all know, that wasn't by any manner of means Norwich's strongest lineup that day. Ibrahim Hamadou playing at centre-back, wasn't he? And et al. And it looks now, maybe Tim Krul aside, that Dean Smith's got all his major options. I think you'd argue, you would be hard pressed to argue. So, yes, certainly there'll be no fear in that camp with that head coach. So it can happen, but Man City won defeat all season in the Premier League to Crystal Palace. I think
2. They lost on the opening day to Spurs as well.
Fair enough, yeah, and the only point they've dropped recently, not even getting beat, but the only point they've dropped, I think, was to Southampton, who the last I heard they were 1-1 at United. Did it finish that way? Yeah. So of course, yeah. I mean, as Dean Smith rightly said, it's 11 humans against 11 humans. They are fallible. They make mistakes. Norwich need to try and exploit those mistakes, but we're all clearly able to see how good this team is that they're facing tonight, and anything at all, even a draw for me would be a tremendous result, and it's such a boost for what lies ahead, which isn't going to be, as Dean Smith said, defined by Man City this week, Liverpool next week. That's not where Norwich stay in this division, but it would be a hell of a fill-up, and building on what they've already achieved in the last few games, if they can get anything from Man City. I mean, what a message that sends to the teams around about them, that we're here and we're hanging around, and you're going to have to put us away, rather than we're going to sort of wave the white flag and meekly go back to the Championship.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, isn't it? Because for all that we talk about this being a better Manchester City, is there an argument this is a better Norwich City than maybe the one 2 years ago?
I think so, yeah. I mean,
certainly without obviously all the injuries. Yeah. I mean, Ibrahim Hamadou was a centre-back.
That's what I mean, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I think the Norwich 11 who take the pitch against this Man City tonight, you wouldn't argue. You would state they are better than that team, but that team just went to a place that, well, they never really scaled again. I think it's safe to say that Premier League season, where they were just, to a man, brilliant. They were fearless that night. And of course, yeah, Man City were not quite at the races. I think that's fair to say. And that would need to happen again tonight. But it's possible. And I think there's still, if we'd have had this game off the back of the 5 or 6 straight league defeats around Christmas, then you would be really fearing how this could end up tonight. But I think, these fans here around about us, I think they will travel with realism, of course, but also a sense that this team aren't going to roll over and make it easy for Man City. If they do win the game tonight and get back on the coach back to Manchester with the 3 points, I think the feeling we all have is that they'll have earned it, because under Dean Smith, this is a different animal now to certainly the Norwich Premier League team under Farker prior to they made the change.
We might need your phone in a minute for the team news, just for when that drops. So I'm just prompting you now. I think the latest scores, when we looked at them, Watford were behind. They're at home to Brighton. That was 1-0 before. I think Everton are beating Leeds 2-0 as well. So it looks like that they're gonna record 3 points. Whether you view that as a good thing for Norwich or not, maybe depending on kind of your view on how many teams they need to pull in. It looks like Leeds are definitely now in a relegation battle, as to I would imagine at Brentford, particularly if they don't arrest what is quite a concerning run of form. So yeah, the latest scores at the moment, 62 minutes gone in the game again between Everton and Leeds. That is 2-0. Brentford drawing 0-0 with Crystal Palace, and Brighton beating Watford 1-0. So I mean, let's look at them, Pad. They're probably, maybe with the exception of Everton, which you could probably do with being a draw, but certainly the Watford result and the Brentford result is probably fairly encouraging. I mean, you've pulled up the league table as it stands. That would put Everton on 22 points. Obviously Norwich in 18th with 17 points, but crucially it would keep Watford beneath them on 15 points.
Yeah, which would be irrespective of obviously how this played out at Carrow Road, that would be that would be a good outcome. And who are Newcastle got this weekend?
They've got Villa tomorrow.
That's at home, innit? Yeah, I remember Steven Gerrard talking about that yesterday. Not an easy game. Hopefully Emmy, if he's fit, I think there's a bit of an injury doubt around him. But Villa, I don't think they're going to be pushovers there. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, what it looks like to me now is it's probably Brentford down, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clubs. And if that is the case, then this is going to go for quite a while, certainly beyond the next 2 games. Which, again, reiterating what we already know, that if Norwich got any points from these next 2, then that's definitely an outcome we probably wouldn't expect realistically. So that tells me that irrespective of how these next 2 games go, there's still going to be plenty to play for. But the flip side of that, of course, is if they don't show enough in these next 2 games, in terms of what we've seen so far, the commitment, the fighting spirit, the resilience, the togetherness, then of course it goes a little bit flat, and of course the momentum stalls to a degree. But yeah, there's no doubt what Norwich have achieved now in these last 3 unbeaten in the Premier League, but the cup wins as well, is they've really reignited what looked like a season which was tailing off pretty alarmingly. And that's to the credit of Smith, Shakespeare, and those players. But they need to kick on now. As Dean Smith said, people who are telling him that this game tonight is a free hit, no such thing for him now. The situation Norwich are in, as we've discussed, at the bottom, towards the bottom of the table, they can't afford to write any game off, however imposing the opposition is. So that's great to hear, and you hope his players perform in a manner that they believe that as well, that we can't come here tonight, put up a good spirited display and then get off the pitch having been beaten 2 or 3-0 or worse. They need to believe they can achieve what they did 2 years ago. And worth reiterating, 6 of the squad who were available that night are still here at the club. Timu Pukki notable amongst them. So there's a core of players available to Dean Smith tonight who know what it takes to beat a Pep Guardiola Man City side. Yes, absolutely. And hopefully we witness what will be another special night at Carrow Road under the night. Same kick-off time for all those superstitious people out there. But Paddy, in terms of this next 2 game blocks, it feels like a lot of what we're going to be doing is maybe watching the teams in and around Norwich City rather than focusing on what Norwich City do. As you say, maybe the expectation, certainly externally, maybe even from some of their own fans, is that it will be 2 defeats against Manchester City and Liverpool, which is the case for the vast majority of teams in this division. What would be a good outcome when we emerge from those 2 games from a Norwich City perspective? If they're still within touching distance, I suppose, would that be the positive thing? And actually, you just showed, before we come to you on that, you just showed me a tweet from the club's official account saying Dean Smith is taking charge of his 100th Premier League game this evening. Which, that's a nice omen, yeah. Absolutely, and probably shows the experience he does have. But yeah, what is a good outcome from these next 2 games for Norwich City? Where, if they emerge after February the 19th, whereabouts on the table would you like them to be, and what would you kind of like the points difference to be? Obviously, on the presumption that maybe these games don't go the way that we're all hoping they do. Well, I think, ultimately, the problem they look to be finding is that they were going to get cut adrift, in that period around the festive part of the season, certainly, after, the initial upturn under Dean, and then it tailed off quite alarmingly. But we know now that, the mitigation was there. The injuries, the unavailability, COVID related. As Dean Smith said, you take 9 or 10 of his best players, his key players out of this squad. I think his actual words were nigh on impossible to get results in the Premier League. So from that point, I think if we emerge the other side of Liverpool and they're still in touch, I wouldn't say that's a good outcome, because obviously, you'd hope against hope they could put another point or more on the board in these next 2 games. But yeah, I think the crucial thing is that maybe what doesn't look like it's happening today, but the Watfords, the Newcastles, the maybe even Brentfords, that they, Leeds, Everton, Newcastle, that they pick up Burnley, that they, in these next 2 games, do get on a little bit of a run. And then, however encouraging the performances are, if Norwich have got no extra points on the board to the tally they've already got, then and they're not cut adrift, but they're further adrift, because really they don't have any margin for error. And that's not down to Dean Smith. That's really the situation he inherited. 1 win on the board before he arrived, and that was in November. The goal difference is horrendous. That goes against them as well. That's a big negative as well. Vis-a-vis, there's only Newcastle anywhere near them in terms of the negativity of the goal difference. So, yes, they may not emerge with many points, but they'll need other teams around them to do likewise, really, and not, post 4 points from 6 or 6 from 6, because then it looks an even bigger mountain to climb than it already is, as we all know.
Yeah, I think we are about a minute or so away from the team news. Of course, maybe the big question marks around formation. Will Dean Smith, I think every indication that he's given us suggests it probably won't be a 4-4-2. Obviously, Josh Sargent returning to the side. You've got the debate of Billy Gilmore as well, and I think now the team should be here, and it is a 4-3-3. And Norwich City line up like this: Angus Gunn in goal, Aarons, Hanley, Gibson, and Williams as the back 4. Gilmore, Lees-Malou, and McLean as the midfield 3. Josh Sargent does return on the right. Milo Rashica on the left with Timu Pukki up front. The subs bench of Michael McGovern, Sam Byram, Christoph Sidman, Dimitris Giannoulis, Matthias Norman, Shemisov Poheta drops out, Kieran Dow, Christoph Solis, and Jonathan Rowe. So, Pat, that's probably about as we expected, right? Heading into this game, Dean Smith told reporters after the win against Watford that they wouldn't head into games against Manchester City and Liverpool with that 4-4-2. We'll just try and bring you the Manchester City team, because we like to absolutely terrify everyone that's watching. So I'm sure that's going to be an embarrassment of riches. We'll try and get that up for you. But an interesting team selection, probably the way we felt Dean Smith would go. Of course, Billy Gilmore returning as well in that defensive midfield role, as it is the holding role of that midfield 3, which is going to be fascinating to see how he gets on. Paddy scrambling to try and find the Man City team.
Yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, that Norwich, more importantly for all of us, is that Norwich City team was, I think, how we all expected it to go. Once we knew Josh Sargent was available, and massive onus on him and Rashica for me, because I think it will. We expect it, probably that 3 in the centre of the park, it will end up probably being there's the Man City.
Yeah, already.
Will end up being a 5, and it will need to be a 5, because, as you say, look at that.
Yes, I'll read you the Manchester City team. I hope you're sitting down first and foremost. Edison in goal, Walker, Diaz, Nathan Ake starts, as does Zinchenko. Ake has maybe not put in the best performances at centre-back at times since signing for Manchester City. Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, and Fernandinho, the midfield 3. With Mahrez, Sterling, and Foden, the front 3. No De Bruyne at all. He drops to the bench. Their subs bench is Carson, Stones, Laporte, Rodri, De Bruyne, Cancelo, Kai, Delap, and McAtee. So there is some rotation in that Manchester City side. No Jack Grealish at all in the matchday squad, which is interesting. Zinchenko starts as well. Ake starts. I mean, it's the start of a big week for them. They head in the Champions League away to Sporting Lisbon. They've got a home game against Tottenham next weekend, and that's maybe shown in Pep Guardiola's team selection tonight, because there's a fair few changes.
Well, looking at that, the fact they've got Kai, Delap, and McAtee on the bench, that has to be an injury with Grealish. I don't see any reason why, because he came on midweek, didn't he? So that must be an injury. I'm sure Pep will clear that up probably before the game to the rights holders. But there's still, as I say, you've got no £100 million man. You've got no, arguably the best player in the Premier League in De Bruyne on in the 11, and yet they can still list talent like Foden, Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, by common consent, probably as good as anything we've seen in the Premier League this season on current form, and Raheem Sterling, who has enjoyed himself against Norwich. But that's a fair point. Defensively, Ake,
Zinchenko, that left side,
Yeah,
you would look at, wouldn't you? I suppose.
Yeah,
if
Laporte's
you're Norwich
dropped out. Yeah, Laporte's dropped out, and there might be some encouragement there for Norwich, but ultimately, it's degrees of quality, isn't it? Really, and of course, I mean, if the game dictates it, then I'm pretty sure we'll see De Bruyne. So there's a little bit more to be optimistic about looking at that Man City 11. But of course, ultimately it's for this 11 here we're looking at here on the screen in terms of Norwich. And yeah, for me, going back to the point I made, once Sargent was available, I certainly felt that's probably the lineup he'd go with. He's got a settled back four there now. Obviously, Angus Gunn deputising for Tim Krul. Big night for Gilmour. Big night for Gilmour. He clearly feels, obviously, with that selection that they need to, in the maybe smaller sample of possession they get, they need to be better on the ball than they were against Palace midweek. And with Gilmour,
it's a Norwich pub.
That should offer you that. So McLean and Lee Smalou ahead of them. Big night for those two guys as well. So I mean, ultimately, I'm now looking at Rashica, Pukki and Sargent against the likes of Ake and Zinchenko, and there could be a little bit of joy there. So famous last words, of course, but yeah, I felt it before the team news dropped, and now I've seen the team news. I think it's that middle ground. I think if the three of McLean, Lee Smalou and Gilmour, supplemented by Rashica and Sargent, obviously without the ball, goes without saying, they need to be pretty obdurate and provide an obstacle so the likes of Foden and Bernardo can't pick the passes through to Sterling ahead of them. But when they do get the ball, I think with Pukki in support, and we know what an intelligent player he is outside the box and his movement, I think Norwich can cause them problems. But ultimately, it's going to take, as Dean Smith said rightly, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 from probably the majority, if not all, of the team to get anything tonight. And it's all set up now. We now know the two lineups, and for me, that's probably Norwich's strongest lineup. If Matthias Norman, as Dean Smith indicated, isn't really ready to start a game, which is what he said to us yesterday, and if that's the case, then really, I think he's probably gone with the strongest 11 he could name. So over to those players now.
Yes, Paddy, thank you very much. Let's see if we can try and get some reaction from some of the people at the pub here. I'm going to ask Adam to walk, which is quite a risk when you're live broadcasting, but we'll see if anyone looks at me and has any interest in speaking. Does he? No, it's all right. Nothing around here. That's fine. Hello, guys. I'm going to interrupt you, I'm afraid. Can I work for the Pink Inn. I just wondered if we could get your thoughts on the game tonight. How are you kind of thinking about it? I don't know if there's one of you that wants to speak more than anyone else. There you go.
I can't hear properly because of my deaf ear. So.
Any thoughts on the game tonight?
Well, I think it's going to be tough. My opinion would be if we can get a draw, that would be a worthy score. But fingers crossed, we have beaten them before, so let's hope we have a good game. But I think it's going to be tough for Norwich.
Have you seen the lineup? What's your thoughts on that?
I haven't seen it.
No, you haven't. So Gilmour and Sargent in 4-3-3 basically is the changes.
Yeah, well, we'll just have to see how it goes. Yeah, I think they give them a good chance. Just like to see what play well. I thought on Wednesday night Palace had too much of the ball. We didn't have enough on the ball, but if we can keep Man City away from our goal, we'll be doing well, I think.
Go on, then, give us your score prediction before I run off and let you enjoy the rest of your training.
Well, I think I'm going to have to go 1 to Norwich and 4 to Man City with a controversial VAR decision, I'm sure.
Good man, thank you very much. Cheers all. Hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. So there we go. That's the thoughts of everyone here. We're going to have to get back down to Carrow Road. So thank you very much for watching. Interested in bringing this in a live setting. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then maybe we'll do more of it soon as well. Pinkin.com and the Pinkin Plus app, of course, the place to go for all of the pre-match. We've got the live blog as well and post-match reaction and analysis. So this game against Manchester City, can lightning strike twice? We certainly hope so.